Imagine being a nomad in 12th century Mongolia, a land of endless horizons, harsh winters, and a life dictated by survival. Every day is a battle against the elements, rival tribes, and the constant need to find food and shelter. Life's tough, right? You're basically wrestling sheep, dodging rival tribes, and trying to keep your family alive. It's a world where strength and cunning are your only allies. That was Genghis Khan's reality, born Temujin. A name that might not scream future conqueror, but his story was just beginning. His early life was rough. Losing his father at a young age left his family vulnerable. They were cast out by their tribe, forced to fend for themselves in the unforgiving steppe. And as if that wasn't enough, he was kidnapped by a rival clan. It was a brutal introduction to the harsh realities of Mongolian tribal politics. But these hardships, they didn't break him. Instead, they shaped him. They taught him resilience, strategy, and the importance of loyalty. He was charismatic, a skilled strategist, and had an uncanny ability to inspire those around him. Genghis Khan understood something crucial. Unity was strength. He knew how to bring people together, even those who were once his enemies. Imagine a medieval Tony Robbins, but instead of motivational seminars, he offered a vision of conquest and survival. And instead of self-help books, he had an army of warriors ready to follow him into battle. He saw that the Mongols, divided by endless tribal disputes, were vulnerable. Their strength was being wasted on infighting. So he set out to change that. Tribe by tribe, he forged alliances, often through diplomacy but sometimes through sheer force. It wasn't easy. There were betrayals, rivalries, and moments of doubt. Not everyone was eager to follow his vision. Power struggles were constant, and every step forward came with its own set of challenges. It was a saga filled with enough drama and intrigue to rival any modern epic. But through it all, Temujin emerged victorious. He became Genghis Khan, Great Khan, the ruler of a united Mongol nation. By 1206, he had achieved what many thought impossible, uniting the Mongols under one banner. This was no small feat. The Mongols had a long history of infighting, and bringing them together required vision, determination, and a bit of ruthlessness. Under his leadership, this unity wasn't just symbolic. It became the foundation of something much greater. It was the bedrock of an empire that would soon stretch across continents. The Mongols, once scattered and divided, were now a force to be reckoned with, and they were ready to unleash their might upon the world, changing history forever. The Mongols weren't just lucky conquerors, they were a force of nature, reshaping the world with their military genius and relentless drive. They were masters of warfare, blending strategy, innovation, and sheer audacity to overwhelm their enemies. They had this whole living on horseback thing down pat, making them incredibly mobile, able to cover vast distances in record time, and terrifying to anyone facing them on foot. Their cavalry charges were like thunder rolling across the plains, unstoppable and devastating. Imagine trying to run a marathon against someone on a dirt bike. Not fair, right? Now imagine that dirt bike is armed to the teeth and coming straight for you. Their weapon of choice? The composite bow. A marvel of engineering for its time, it was compact, powerful, and deadly accurate. This wasn't your kid brother's archery set, it was a precision instrument capable of piercing armor and striking fear into the hearts of their enemies. This thing could shoot arrows over 2 football fields, giving the Mongols a lethal advantage in long-range combat. They also weren't afraid to innovate, constantly adapting and improving their arsenal to stay ahead of their enemies. They adopted gunpowder weapons from the Chinese, incorporating explosives and early firearms into their already formidable toolkit. This made them the Michael Bays of medieval warfare, explosions guaranteed and destruction on an epic scale. But their real secret weapon? Psychological warfare. They understood that battles could be won before a single arrow was fired. The Mongols knew that fear was a powerful weapon. They cultivated a reputation for being unstoppable, ruthless, and merciless. They'd often send a message ahead, offering their enemies a choice: surrender and be spared, or resist and face utter destruction. And they weren't kidding. Cities that resisted were made examples of, their populations decimated, their walls reduced to rubble. This brutal strategy instilled a terror that often led to cities surrendering without a fight, saving the Mongols time and resources. The psychological impact was immense. Entire regions would capitulate, knowing resistance was futile. It was brutal, yes, but in the game of conquest, it was incredibly effective. The Mongols didn't just conquer lands, they reshaped history. From the steppes of Mongolia, Genghis Khan and his successors, let's call them the Genghis Gang, built the largest contiguous land empire in history. We're talking about stretching from Korea all the way to Eastern Europe. They conquered the Khwarezmid Empire in Persia, giving modern-day Hungary a whole new meaning. Look up what happened to the Shah's treasure. They even took on the Jin dynasty in China, eventually conquering it and making Beijing a capital city. Genghis Khan died in 1227, but his death didn't stop the Mongol war machine. His sons and grandsons continued to expand the empire, pushing into Europe, the Middle East, and even Russia. Imagine their Tinder bios hobbies include horseback riding, archery, and conquering nations. Swipe right if you dare. Okay, maybe not, but you get the picture. Now you might be thinking, all this conquering sounds pretty chaotic. And well, you're not wrong. The Mongols were known for their fierce and relentless campaigns, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. But that's only one side of the story. Yes, the aftermath of their conquests could be devastating. Entire cities were razed and populations displaced. But to focus solely on this would be to miss the bigger picture. The Mongols were not just destroyers. They were also master strategists and administrators. They understood that chaos alone couldn't sustain an empire. To govern effectively, they needed to establish order and stability, and that's where their genius truly shone. Enter the Pax Mongolica, also known as the Mongolian Peace. This wasn't just a catchy name, it was a transformative period in history. During this time, roughly spanning the 13th to 14th centuries, the Mongols created an environment where trade routes like the Silk Road thrived. They ensured the safety of merchants and travelers, which was no small feat in a world rife with banditry. Trade flourished like never before. Exotic goods, groundbreaking ideas, and yes, even diseases, moved freely between East and West, connecting cultures in unprecedented ways. Imagine the Silk Road as a medieval superhighway of cultural exchange, with the Mongols acting as the ultimate traffic controllers. Instead of issuing fines, they ensured smooth passage for those who followed the rules. Surprisingly, the Mongols were remarkably open-minded when it came to religion and culture. They didn't impose their beliefs on others. Instead, they adopted a live-and-let-live approach. As long as you paid your taxes and didn't cause trouble, you were free to practice your faith and traditions. This pragmatic approach to governance allowed them to maintain control over a vast and diverse empire. It wasn't just about power, it was about creating a system that worked. Their tolerance and administrative brilliance fostered an era of innovation and exchange. The Pax Mongolica wasn't just peaceful, it was a golden age of connectivity and progress. Even empires crumble, and the Mongols were no exception. By the mid-14th century, the empire began to fragment. Remember those Genghis Gang successors? Well, it turns out sharing power isn't always easy, even when you're related. Internal squabbles and rivalries weakened the empire from within. It's like that old saying, you can conquer the world, but you can't make your siblings get along. Adding to their woes, the Black Death, a devastating pandemic, ripped through the empire in the 1340s, decimating populations and disrupting trade routes. Imagine a medieval version of social distancing, but with more, buboes. The Black Death was a major blow, weakening the empire's economic and social fabric. By the late 14th century, the once mighty Mongol Empire had fractured into smaller khanates, each vying for power and influence. The glory days of the Pax Mongolica were over, and the world was entering a new era. The Mongols might be gone, but their impact on the world is undeniable. They reshaped the political map of Asia and Eastern Europe. They were responsible for connecting the East and West in ways that had a lasting impact on trade, technology, and culture. They even influenced the development of Russia, for better or worse, depending on who you ask. But perhaps their most significant legacy is their story. The rise and fall of the Mongol Empire is a reminder that even the mightiest empires are not immune to the tides of time. It's a story of ambition, conquest, but also of cultural exchange and the interconnectedness of civilizations. The Mongols. They weren't just guys on horses with bows and arrows. Okay, they were totally guys on horses with bows and arrows, but they were also brilliant strategists, ruthless conquerors, and surprisingly adept administrators. They built an empire that spanned continents and reshaped entire regions, fostered a period of peace and prosperity, and left an indelible mark on the world. So the next time you hear the word Mongol, remember, they were more than just those horse guys. They were a force of nature that shaped the course of human history.